To gain access to the factory shifter, we need to remove the shift knob and center console. We need to start by unthreading the shift knob and then remove the shift boot by pulling up on the corners. Now we need to open the center console and use a Phillips screwdriver to remove the two upper screws. To remove the top center trim, we need to pull up on the rear corners and undo any wiring connectors you may have, and then set the trim to the side. Remove the dust boot and proceed under the car. On the 2010, we need to remove the factory knob and center console. To remove the console, lift up on the rear of the center trim and undo any wiring connectors you may have. Next, we will need to remove the sound insulation and rubber dust boot. To give us more working room, we need to use an 18mm socket and lower the transmission brace. Fully remove two bolts and then put them back in 2 turns so that you have a gauge. Using a 13mm socket, we now need to undo the shifter linkage. Using a 10mm wrench, we need to remove the bolt from the shifter support leg. Using a 10mm deep well socket, remove the 2 nuts that hold up the rear support bracket and remove the bracket. The bracket will be held in place by a retaining clip. Using a small pry bar or a flathead screwdriver, compress the top of the clip and pull the bracket down. Inside the car, we can now pull the factory shifter out through the floor pan and put the Barton shifter in. We can now connect a linkage to the Barton shifter. This must be done first. Do not tighten the nut at this point. With the linkage in the shifter, we can now reinstall the shifter arm bolt. It is very important that this bolt is screwed all the way in by hand. We can now install the bracket, making sure the Barton logo and bolt heads are facing the rear of the vehicle. Start the nuts by hand, but leave the bolts and the bracket loose. Using a 10mm wrench, go ahead and fully tighten the shifter arm bolt, being careful not to over tighten. Next, we need to fully tighten all 4 of the brace bolts, bringing them up evenly. We can now tighten the linkage and the rear support bracket. Be careful not to over tighten. Back inside the car, we need to reinstall the dust boot. Stretch the small opening in the bottom of the boot over the shifter cap, and then seat the boot seam into the floor pan. Next, we need to mount the upper shifter arm to the shifter, using the supplied 5/16 Allen cap screw and a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. With the handle in place, we need to stretch the dust boot onto the handle. Start the boot up on the driver's side and then pull up onto the passenger side. Reinstall any sound insulation you had and all the wiring connectors, followed by the center trim screws, shift boot, and shift knob. Be sure to go through all gears to check for any problems. This concludes the installation.